government. Kia ora.
I call Simeon Brown.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And I would like to also start my speech by acknowledging the 125th anniversary of Suffrage Day here in New Zealand and the time when women won the vote. And I think it's an important moment in our country's history and an incredibly proud one, and one that I'm incredibly proud of today. And I also have been reflecting, as this debate's been going on, about some of the women principals in my electorate of Pakuranga who do a fantastic job educating our students and our learners. And I'd like to acknowledge, I thought I'd acknowledge one from our primary school, Carol Dickinson from Riverina Primary School, who is the new principal there. She does a fantastic job. Linda Harvey at Farm Cove Intermediate, and Louise Addison at Edgewater College, who was appointed earlier this year. These are three fantastic educationalists in the Pakuranga electorate, and I'm privileged to be able to work alongside them and the work that they do. Madam Speaker, but let me get to the bill here that we're debating tonight, which is the National Education and Learning Priorities Amendment Bill. And we've heard lots of speeches from the government side about how important this bill is. And I think one of the really interesting comments from Chloe Swarbrick in the Green Party was that this bill has evolved through Select Committee stage. Well, I've got news for her. It's actually devolved. Because if people listening at home wanted to take a moment to have a look at the bill, they'd realise how much of the bill has actually been crossed out by the member in charge of the bill. It used to have clauses 4, 5, 6 and 7, and they're just gone. Just cross them out. We just got them out because the unions turned up. The unions turned up and said, well, this bill shouldn't be going ahead. And she listened partially. She listened to half of what they said. She listened to half of what they said, which was get rid of the bill, while she just crossed out most of it and put a little bit less in there. And so, but actually the message that they were giving to her, and I thought it was actually the best message I've heard from the unions on my whole year here in Parliament, is get rid of this bill. And the message is still there for the other side of the House. Take the opportunity and get rid of this embarrassment of a piece of legislation which does nothing. Now, Madam Speaker, I'd like to bring to the House a different point from what my colleagues have been saying. And they've been, we have been criticising the member in charge of this bill, and I do acknowledge Jan Tinetti. It is a fortunate thing to have a bill brought before Parliament and to be able to progress it through, and I've got one myself, and I'm enjoying being part of that process. However, I would like to just make a point in that Jan Tinetti should be acknowledged for all the hard work that she has done in this bill. Because we know that there are reviews for Africa going on in the education sector, trying to discuss what the vision should be, what we should be aiming to do over the next 30 years. And actually, if you read what's been crossed out, she's done a good job trying to make a first attempt. She's done a good job making her first attempt. She's even tried to define what the education learning priorities for the country should be. To provide learning experiences that support children and young people to reach their potential, and a system that aims to achieve equitable outcomes for all. And that's actually not much different from what we had in the legislation and what's currently in the law. But she has given it a crack. And so what the point I'm trying to make is she should be given far more credit for the work that she's done in the first reading in drafting this piece of legislation, and she's doing the work of multiple reviews. But we've got reviews going out there now to try and define that, then to define how that should be implemented, and all of the other bits which have been crossed out. Resilience, determination, confidence, all of these great words as part of her education learning system, which she has come up with and which she put in the bill, but now have been crossed out, and which sadly will not be going any further. But these are the issues that we should be debating here tonight. And I just come back to the point. It was made earlier by one of my colleagues, and I think it was the Honourable Tim McIndoe, who was an Associate Minister of Education, a very good one, a very good Associate Minister of Education. The point he was making was that when we go out and visit schools, when I go and visit schools in my electorate in Pakuranga, we don't get people coming up to us and saying, oh, you need to change that National Education and Learning Priorities part of the Education Act. That's our #1 priority. Or you need to make sure that bodies representing the interests of...
Not me.
Oh, sorry, Madam Chair. That's the #1 priority. Or you need to make sure there's a long list...
Not me.
That's our?
Not me.
I didn't say you, sorry.
You did.
They don't come up and say, we need to make sure that we include a long list of bodies which are listed as to being in the consultation. They don't say that. They say we do need to invest in our teacher aides. We do need to invest in ensuring that we have good quality teachers. We do need to invest in making sure there's adequate learning support available for for the children which require it. Those are the issues which are raised when we visit schools, when we talk to principals, when we talk to teachers and we talk to parents. They don't come up to us, and I haven't got a long line of people out my office door saying you've got to change the national education learning priorities. That's not what we get lining up at our door. But here we are in Parliament debating legislation which makes inconsequential changes to the national education and learning priorities. And let me get to some of this. So the Minister must take reasonable efforts. We've heard Minister Jenny Salisa come up and say, and I think Chloe Swarbrick made the same point, that this will require the Minister to consult. Well, I've got news for the other side of the House. The bill as it stands says the Minister must make reasonable efforts to consult. And there's a big difference between must consult and must make reasonable efforts to consult. Because we know what will happen is the Minister will just keep doing what the Minister keeps on doing. So will the government members take responsibility for their words and amend this even further, cross some more words out and make it so the Minister must consult? Because that's what they've stood up in the House. That's what they're telling New Zealanders. No doubt that's what they're going up and down the country and saying, we've got this one piece of legislation which is going to make a huge difference. It's going to mean the Minister must consult. Well, it's not what the bill says. So I'd like the next member who stands up on the government side to clarify what they're saying and get the record straight on this issue. Well, I'm taking this issue so seriously because it's a serious matter that the government is wasting the House's time rather than getting on and fixing the real issues which the House's time should be used to do. Madam Speaker, this bill makes so many inconsequential changes. And then we heard from Chloe Swarbrick that this involves parents. And she said that with some sort of disdain, which I thought was very unfortunate. But it says here in the bill, in clause 4A, it says that national bodies representing the interests of parents must be consulted. It doesn't say consult with parents. It just says national bodies representing the interests of parents. So is that a union? Can the members on the other side, as Dan Benoit very appropriately asks, does that mean unions? Because I think that's something, or is there a union for that? That's a question that I'd like the members on the other side to answer, because this bill does not clarify, does not make it clear that parents will be consulted. It doesn't mean that parents have a requirement to be consulted. It just says national bodies representing the interests of parents. And I think that's great. I think it's good. There are bodies which represent parents, and I think they do a great job. But why can't parents also be consulted? If we're going to have a big, long list of everyone who's going to be consulted, why can't parents also be on that list? And I think the members on the other side of the House need to clarify whether they're going to make a change, whether they actually back parents as being part of the education of their children and the significant role that parents up and down our country play in the role of parenting, but also in educating children, supporting their schools and supporting the good work that teachers do in supporting children's learning. So members on the other House are misrepresenting the very bill which has so little in it to be misrepresented. There's so little in this bill to be misrepresented, but they've managed to find enough to misrepresent here in the House tonight. And Madam Speaker, one of the last changes that this bill makes, it says in clause 5A, a minor change under subsection 5 is limited to a technical, short and uncontroversial amendment that does not change or extend the policy of the Statement of National Education and Learning Priorities. Well, Madam Speaker, that summarises the entirety of this bill. That's right. It's a minor change, it's technical, it's short, it's uncontroversial. Well, it is controversial because it's a waste of this House's time, and it does not change or extend the policy of the national education and learning priorities, because they ripped out the guts of the bill, they got rid of it, and now we're here wasting our time when we could be actually solving some of the real issues facing the education system in New Zealand. Thank you.
I understand this is a split call. I call Jamie Strange.
Madam Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to take a call on the education